The categories of consciousness, however, are trichomatous, as language also demonstrates, for when I say, I am conscious of this sensory impression, I am expressing a triad. Consciousness is mind, and it is remarkable that when one is divided in the world of mind, there are three, never two. Consciousness, therefore, presupposes reflection. If this were not the case, then it would be impossible to explain doubt. Admittedly, language seems to conflict with this, for in most languages, as far as he knew, the term to doubt is etymologically related to the word to, yet he surmised that this merely suggested the presupposition of doubt, all the more so since it was clear to him that as soon as I, as mind, become two, I am eo ipso three. If there were nothing but dichotomies, doubt would not exist, for the possibility of doubt resides precisely in the third, which places the two in relation to each other. We could not therefore say that reflection produces doubt, unless we would express ourselves in reverse. We must say that doubt presupposes reflection, without, however, this prius being temporary. Doubt arises by way of a reflection between two, but for this to happen the two must be. Yet doubt, which is a higher expression, proceeds and does not come afterward. Reflection is the possibility of the relation. This can also be stated as follows. Reflection is disinterested. Consciousness, however, is the relation and thereby is interest, a duality that is perfectly and with pregnant double meaning expressed in the word interest, which means or is derived from being between. Therefore, all disinterested knowledge, mathematics, aesthetics, metaphysics, is only the presupposition of doubt. As soon as the interest is cancelled, doubt is not conquered but is neutralized, and all such knowledge is simply a retrogression. Thus it would be a misunderstanding for someone to think that doubt can be overcome by so-called objective thinking. Doubt is a higher form than any objective thinking, for it presupposes the latter, but has something more, a third, which is interest or consciousness. In this respect, he considered the conduct of the Greek skeptics far more consistent than the modern overcoming of doubt. They were well aware that doubt is based on interest, and therefore with perfect consistency they thought they could cancel doubt by transforming interest into apathy. In this method there was a consistency, whereas it was an inconsistency, seemingly based on ignorance of what doubt is, that motivated modern philosophy to want to conquer doubt systematically. Even if the system were absolutely perfect, even if the actuality exceeded the advanced reports, doubt would still not be overcome. It only begins, for doubt is based on interest, and all systematic knowledge is disinterested. From this, it is apparent that doubt is the beginning of the highest form of existence, because it can have everything else as its presupposition. The Greek skeptics perceived so exceptionally well that it is unreasonable to speak of doubt when interest is cancelled, but presumably they would also have perceived that it is a play on words to speak about an objective doubt. Let ideality and reality be in conflict forever and a day. As long as there is no consciousness, no interest, no consciousness that has an interest in this struggle, there is no doubt, but let them be reconciled, and doubt can continue just as actively. Consciousness, then, is the relation, a relation whose form is contradiction. But how does consciousness discover the contradiction? If that fallacy discussed above could remain, that ideality and reality and all naivety communicated with one another, consciousness would never emerge, for consciousness emerges precisely through the collision, just as it presupposes the collision. Immediately there is no collision, but immediately it is present. As soon as the question of repetition arises, the collision is present, for only a repetition of what has been before is conceivable. In reality as such, there is no repetition. This is not because everything is different. Not at all. If everything in the world were completely identical, in reality there would be no repetition, because reality is only in the moment. If the world, instead of being beauty, were nothing but equally large, unvariegated boulders, there would still be no repetition. Throughout all eternity, in every moment, I would see a boulder, but there would be no question as to whether it was the same one I had seen before. In ideality alone there is no repetition, for the idea is and remains the same, as much as such it cannot be repeated. When ideality and reality touch each other, then repetition occurs. When, for example, I see something in the moment, ideality enters in and will explain that it is a repetition. Here is the contradiction, for that which is also in another mode. That the external is that I see, but in the same instant I bring it into relation with something that also is, something that is the same and that also will explain that the other is the same. Here is a redoubling. Here it is a matter of repetition. Ideality and reality therefore collide. In what medium? In time? That is indeed an impossibility. In eternity? That is indeed an impossibility. In what then? In consciousness. There is the contradiction. The question is not disinterested, as if one asks whether all existence is not an image of the idea, and to that extent whether visible existence is not, in a certain volatilized sense, a repetition. Here the question is more specifically one of a repetition in consciousness, consequently of recollection. Recollection involves the same contradiction. Recollection is not ideality, it is ideality that has been. It is not reality, it is reality that has been, which again is a double contradiction. For ideality, according to its concept, has been, and the same holds true of reality according to its concept.